how to enforce some security if you're not able to make server secured by some lockers, you can't put it to some room where nobody have access, because there is a lot of customers. Every customer is different, and some of them have branch offices where they don't have a server room where they can secure the servers, but they still need servers there. Some customers are not so big, and they have only a couple of servers, and they are in their office. So there is a ways how to protect servers even they are not physically secured. I will talk about basic hypervisor hardening best practices, and I will talk also about other things that are not related to the physical security, but they are related to configuration of your virtual desktop infrastructure and your servers or VDI VMs. So there will be a lot of links in this presentation, different links to knowledge base articles, to some blog posts. All these links are available right now at this short link, bit.ru secure IT. And you can go there if you need more information. You will find all information there. So let's talk about physical security. Why physical security is important? Because servers can be they can be stolen, and all data on these servers will be stolen. But usually it's not happening. If some insider will try to attack you, I think first thing that he will do, he will try to duplicate server. And if you have physical access to the server, you can create an image of the server and take it with you. Or if it's some server with a write array, you can put another drive and replace during the working hours, and nobody will see it if you don't have any monitoring. So physical security is important. I don't know, did you see videos that was posted after BriForum in London? You will have access to these videos, and there was my presentation when I using some boot ISO, or you can burn it to the CD and reset password. And it's easy, and if you have physical access to your hypervisor, you will get access to the hypervisor itself, and you will have access to all VMs on this hypervisor, and that's all. You're in God mode. You can do whatever you want with these servers. And how you can secure your hypervisors, and do you need to do this? As I said, yes, you need to do this, because all your VMs, maybe your domain controllers, are running on these VMs. So how many of you know how to reset the password of Windows box? Okay, so I have a video demo from my BriForum presentation in London, and I will show it right now. So it's easy. You can, in this demo, I will show you how to how I change the password. But before changing the password, I want to be sure that I don't have access to the server itself. By the way, this virtual machine is a domain controller. And what I'm doing right now, I'm trying to generate some password, random password, and set it for administrator. So I'm setting this password for administrator. Of course, I don't remember it. It's just copy and paste it. And you can be sure that I will be not able to log on with my old password. So I'm logging off, trying to log on. And of course, log on will be unsuccessful. I don't know the password. So what I'm doing in this demo, I'm just attaching the ISO. You can download this ISO from pogostick.net website. There is different tools available. that allow you to reset the password of Windows box, because it's just a registry settings. You can do this manually with regedit if you will boot from the recovery CD. But this thing is easier. You can boot with this ISO, select a couple of options. You should select what partition on the disk you will use where your Windows is installed. You open the registry file. It can list your users, including administrators. And by the way, it's a Windows box and it's domain controller. And some people think that there is no local administrators, no local groups on domain controller. They are still there. It's even its domain controller, it has directory service restore mode, and in directory service restore mode, it's just local, some database with users and groups and all this stuff. So what I'm doing right now, I'm resetting password for recovery admin, and I will use this account to log on to the server. So password is cleared, and I'm restarting the server, injecting the ISO, and it's easier. I'm there. So, and another thing, well, it's a domain controller. So I can be a local admin on this box, but I'm still not a domain admin. And there's easiest way to how to reset the password of domain admin. So I'm booting in the safe mode or directory services restore mode. You can select it because you have a physical access to the server. You already resetted the password. So I'm logging into the server. And maybe you know from the old days, there is one tool available in Windows Server Resource Kit called SRV Any. It allows you to start any executable as a service. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this tool to install new service. And this service will will just run one command, and this command is mentioned here. Net user administrator set the password. And this service will run as a local system when I will restart the server in normal, when I will restart domain controller in the normal mode. And the domain controller has access to the Active Directory if it's not read-only domain controller. And it can set the password for administrator if you not configured security properties of your administrators. So I'm installing the service, and restarting the server. Yeah, just showing you that service is running using system account, and system has access. So I will try to make it a little bit faster. Yeah, here. So I'm restarting the server and trying to log on as domain admin. I know the password. It's easy. So that's the reason why you need to secure your servers. You can do exactly the same thing with Hyper-V box. You can do exactly almost the same thing with your Zen servers, with VMware ESX. You can reset the password of local admin. What you need to do for this, first of all, you need to get physical access, and you need to be able to start from CD or from USB or from something else. And first thing that you need to do is to prevent this. By the way, there's a couple of links to knowledge-based articles and blog posts how to do exactly the same thing with Zen server and ESX and ESXi. You can reset the password. It's not rocket science. It's easy. So what you need to do, you need to secure your boot. So if you can't secure a server, and even if you can secure server by mean you can put it in some physical location which is secured. Anyway, you need to secure your server by disabling boot from PXE, USB, CD, only if you need this, only if you boot your servers with provisioning services, you need PXE boot. But in most situations, you don't need it. If you're using PXE to manage your servers, and your vendor doesn't have this capability to change boot order from the running system, and it requires you to boot from PXE all the time, just change your vendor. But anyway, you need to change boot order. You need to be sure that server is starting only from the C drive, from your hard drive, and there's no other tools, no other ways enabled. Be careful with UEFI, because when you on the new servers, when you enable UEFI, it changes the way how boot order is configured. And on some servers, it's not possible to completely remove removable drives from the boot options. So you need to check this with your servers and with documentation on from your vendor. After you did installation on the server, it is better to disable removable drives at all, because usually you don't need a CD to manage your working server. If you need it, you can enable it, or you can use IO or something like this. And set password on the BIOS. There is two options. And when I talked with some customers and saying that you need to set a password on the BIOS, and they say, oh, who will enter this password when the server will be unexpectedly restarted? There is two options. One is boot protection. Second is BIOS protection. So set BIOS setup password, and it will prevent users from changing the boot order. And one short note about new G8 servers. They have another way to manage servers, so you can disable it. And if you don't use intelligent provisioning on new SHP servers, disable it. I think almost every hardware vendor right now, server vendor, they have out-of-band management. Some companies do it better, some companies not so good in this area, but anyway, Dell, HP, IBM, Cisco, they have IVO or something like this. And there is passwords exist for default passwords exist, default users exist, and if someone knows the password or IP address and the password of the user and can manage the IO, that's all. This user is having physical access to the server, and your server can be easily taken by this user. So to avoid this, I recommend to implement AD integration for IO or for Dell DRAC. You should always use your credentials to access servers, and you should always know who is accessing the server. Because if you're still using default admin account on the IO, or you just creating some service accounts in IO console or onboard administrator, you never know who did actual change, because there is some basic user and there is no login. If you will enable AD integration, you will see in the logs who did a change and when it was. So even if someone will do something wrong with your servers, always disable local accounts if it's possible, or change the password. HP did this password management a little bit better. Default password for administrator is printed on each server, and if you don't have physical access to the server, you don't know this password. But Dell and IBM, they are funny. They have default passwords, and these passwords are published in their user guides. So if you will see some IBM server, you can take ownership on this server easily, because most of people don't change the password. I don't know why. Configure SNMP login or syslog login. It depends on your hardware vendor, and it will allow you to see who did some changes and who had access to the server. And grant access permissions carefully. Why you need to grant some access permissions to someone? As example, if you implementing some kind of virtualization, Zen server or VMware, you can configure VMware or Zen server to automatically power on servers using the ILO or using drag. And to do this, you need to configure some user. And I've seen it a lot of times when customers are just creating another one administrator because they don't know what permissions required to start a server, and they just create another one administrator. And this password for this user is stored somewhere. If we're talking about Zen server, it's stored in the clear text. You can, almost anybody can take this password easily. So be careful. And if you have such systems that are storing passwords in the clear text, or password can be easily decrypted, create a limited user account with only permissions that you need for this account. Next thing is use separated management network because you don't need IO in the same subnet where your users and where your other servers. You need it somewhere hidden because it's physical access to the server. Just do this. Always install certificates and use trusted certification authorities. It will help to prevent man-in-the-middle attack and a lot of different things. Disable unused services on your ILO or Dell drag or IBM RSA. As example, Telnet. Even if you use it, it's a huge security issue because everything is unencrypted on the network. Do not use Telnet. You can, with most vendors, you can use SSH if you need it. But if you don't use SSH and you use an only graphical console to the server, disable SSH because you don't need it, and it can be easily disabled. Configure SNMP community strings. Most of the out-of-band management devices, they can be monitored using SNMP, and if there is default community configured public or something like this, attacker can get a lot of information about your server or even do something with your server. There's actually a lot of information about securing Dell and HP servers. There are security guides. HP have version 7 or 8 already of this security guide, and there's basic steps how to make your physical servers more secure, even they are not physically secure and they are accessible by the users. Update firmware. It's the same like with Windows. You need to install latest security fixes, and it also works for out-of-band management processors because it's a real computer with real operating system, and it can have some zero-day vulnerabilities, and you need to fix it. And configure audit and logging, and always review it. Configure alerts on some things like resident BIOS of the computer, or log on to the IO console and monitor these alerts. But anyway, if you secured your I/O and you set your startup, your server startup, your server boot order only from CD, attacker can reset your BIOS. And he can change the boot order, boot from the ISO, and that's all. How to protect from this? Use TPM. Most of the servers, new modern servers, have an option to install trusted platform module. And this module is actually a small chip that are installed on the motherboard, and it acts like a smart card. It can store, it has some security registers, and these security registers store information, and this information is accessible only to one instance of operating system. So operating system takes ownership of this chip, and nobody can modify these registers or take encryption certificates out from this model. And it's actually works and works easily. You can install this TPM model in your server, order it as an option, or buy a server with TPM. And you will see that TPM is usually disabled by default. It's disabled by default on the servers, on the laptops, anywhere it's disabled by default. Reason for this, I will tell about this a little bit later, but there is a reason for this. Because when your attacker or you by yourself will reset the BIOS, it will switch back to disabled mode, and if you need to enable it back, it is a requirement to clear TPM. You can't enable TPM. You cannot disable TPM and then enable it. It will lose keys, and if you use disk encryption, you will lose your disk. So, as I said, TPM is owned by us, and it's not possible to change ownership on the TPM. And if you will just make some steps, you will secure boot, order in the BIOS, install TPM aware OS, or configure TPS or aware OS, and set a BIOS setup password, your server is more secure and much harder to break by anyone. So how to implement TPM? How to install it on your servers? Easiest way to try to use TPM on your servers is to use Windows and use Hyper-V. It works for Hyper-V server, free Hyper-V server. It works for Windows boxes, and you can install any version of Windows starting from Windows 2008, and you can enable disk BitLocker full disk encryption. And your disk will be encrypted, and it will be not accessible by these tools that I showed in first demo. When computer will start from the ISO, it will see just encrypted partition. And there is no easy way to decrypt this data, and there is no way to decrypt this data without some keys. And so, as I said, your system is a little bit protected. That's not all, but it's a good start. How BitLocker works, when you install BitLocker disk encryption. How many of you tried BitLocker disk encryption? 1, 2. So when you install BitLocker disk encryption for your system drive, for your operating system, you need to have another one partition to start the core to allow data encryption. Some processors should read keys from TPM and use these keys to decrypt your drive. And during the boot stage, there's also integrity checks enabled. And when you enable TPM, it checks that master boot record is valid and not modified by someone. It checks master boot record checks that your boot sector is okay, and there's some tree of trust with root in the TPM chip. So TPM, Windows BitLocker is easy to implement, easy to try. If you have TPM enabled module, you can easily try it on your laptop or on your servers. And what is great with BitLocker, that it can be managed by using group policies. And even if sometimes you will lose your TPM protected key and there will be no option to start this computer, but you can still decrypt data because there is possibility to have recovery keys, and you can store these recovery keys somewhere in Notepad, but the safest way is to store them in Active Directory, because these keys can be stored in the Active Directory. You need to extend schema, and you as administrator will see all keys for all computers in your organization, and it will allow you to recover. You can create you can delegate these permissions for some users who will be like data recovery agents, and you can do this. You can use this link to find information how to change permissions on TPM objects in Active Directory. There is a white paper available from Microsoft. It's actually about Windows 2008 and not covering some changes that was in 2008 R2, and of course it's not covering changes in Windows 2012. And but it's still actual, and as I said, there is step-by-step guide how to implement Hyper-V with BitLocker, and it's easy and it works. Some people think that Hyper-V clusters are not supported. It's obvious, it seems obvious, because your key is in TPM, and TPM is only on one physical box, and you can't have the same key on other physical box. Yes, it's not supported for shared drives, but it's supported for encryption of local system, and it's supported. To make it work, you need to install this hotfix that mentioned on the screen. In-guest VM encryption is not supported by Microsoft. First of all, because there is no TPM pass-through to VMs, and TPM is not available. To test, to play with it, you can enable BitLocker without TPM using the floppy drive or USB stick as a key storage, but it's obvious that it's not secure. It's just for testing purposes. And Windows Server 2012 will support BitLocker encrypted cluster shared volumes. So that's great. HP have another one, step-by-step guide. Guide how to enable BitLocker with Hyper-V. So you can check this white paper. But Windows everything is easy. Everything is in the product. What we know about TPM and other products? So first of all, Zen Server has no any official support for TPM. It's not mentioned. There is Zen Client XT available that use TPM and TXT, but this functionality is not in the Zen Server. There is actually TPM emulator in Zen. And it's actually available through API on the Zen Server 6. And you can enable it, but it's completely different things. It can be maybe used for testing purposes, some virtual TPM in your VM, but it's not secure. This virtual TPM is just XML file somewhere in configuration. But great thing that Zen Server is just a Linux, and you can do anything that you want with this box, with this Linux. You can install any software. Of course, it will be not supported by Citrix, but maybe your goal is not to break it, but just to secure the server, and you maybe don't care about this functionality. You will not ask support for TPM functionality in Zen Server. So how to do this? You can use different open source tools that allow you to use TPM enabled boot. There's Trusted Group, Group IMA, and Oslo products available. I tried Trusted Group and Group IMA. They work and they look stable. You can configure even disk encryption, full disk encryption with using keys stored on TPM. But it's a little bit complicated because you need to rebuild images, you need to make a lot of work, but there is a blueprint from IBM. It's not related to Citrix Zen Server. It's related to just some Linux. But because Zen Server is just Linux, you can implement these features in Zen Server, and it will actually work. So how Trusted Group works? First of all, when you install Trusted Group, you create two-stage files. One will become your master boot record. Second will become initial group loader. And Trusted Group is also putting the checksums of these stages in TPM. And when you start on your computer with TPM enabled, TPM checks consistency of your master boot record and boot record. It checks, then it starts loading master boot record, and master boot record check consistency of your initial loader. Then your initial loader check TPM registers where stored some checksums for some files like your kernel, your group configuration. And if someone modified it by booting from some ISO and modifying files, your Zen Server will not start. Then you can configure some additional files that will be checked by Trusted Group. You can configure your passwd file or your shadow file, and you will be sure that there is no new local users configured on Zen Server. And this is really important. I will talk about this later. So there is step-by-step instructions from IBM available how to configure Trusted Group and some other solutions with TPM on Linux. Be careful, GPT is not supported by Trusted Group. You need to switch to, you need to install your Zen servers with MBR partitions, and there's an easy way to do this. You need to modify a configuration file which read by installer during the installation. You can also read a lot of technical information about TPM and Linux in this white paper that was prepared by German company Citrix AG together with German government. And they analyzed all available products, I think, that working with TPM and all available products that release it to open source. They analyze them. They have step-by-step instructions how to configure this on your Linux boxes. So take a day to play with it if you want to know how to secure your servers. So how to secure Zen server? Disable boot from removable devices, set the BIOS password, enable TPM, disable single user mode without password, because you can reset password on Zen server if you will press some key during the start and boot in the single user mode. You will have access to the system. You can reset password for root user. So change this option. Install trusted group. Configure additional checks on passwd file on group loader configuration, and secure the group loader. You can set the password on the group loader, and nobody will be able to modify boot options to enable single mode or boot other kernel. So, and then just enable trusted group, and that's all. You will be sure that your server will be hard target for attacker. Of course, this will not help you to, if someone will make a copy of your server, or someone steal your server because your disk is not encrypted, but that's another story. What we have with VMware? So VMware claims that TPM is supported. There is a knowledge base article that say, yeah, we check some kernel models, vkernel models, but not all of them. There's no descriptions what models are checked. And the funny thing is that there is no documentation at all about how to enable and configure TPM on VMware. Maybe you will find something, but I tried, I asked guys from VMware, they don't have this information. So it's supported. So it works when TPM is present, but it doesn't mean that it works with TPM. So it's not configurable, it's not documented. There's no partner solutions for ESXi or ESX that use TPM. And there's no disk encryption. It's not possible because there is FAT16. Use it as partitions for ESXi. So there is some ways how to deal with this with VMware, and I will describe them later. So that's all about TPM. Do you have some questions about TPM? Okay, let's go next. So TPM is not only thing that you need to try to configure on your servers. There's some basic recommendations what to do to secure your VMs on your hypervisors. First of all, try to avoid using local storage. Use attached SAN and store VMs there. Always use authentication on your iSCSI storage, because it will increase your security. And if you use an NFS with Zen server, it's another story. You should always check permissions on your NFS server, because recommendations from Citrix how to configure, as example, free NAS, they are not secure, because almost anyone on your network will have access to your storage with your VMs. So be careful with this. If you're trying to secure ESXi and you need to be sure that your disk is encrypted, you can use boot from SAN and use fiber channel security protocols. It's another one option, and you can configure your storage to encrypt data on the storage. Of course, it's a problem for performance. You should measure performance and be sure that your security is not impacting your users. But if you force it to secure your servers, there is a way. You can use disk encryption on the storage level. You can enable, you can install fiber channel cards with support of fiber channel security protocol. And your data will be encrypted on the wire. Your data will be encrypted on the storage. But operating system will work without any problems because it will not know anything about this encryption. Everything will be configured on the lower level. Another one recommendation regarding the storage. It's from other area, but try to avoid using dynamic disks. Because any user, if you not enabled disk quotas, any user can create any big file, it can download big file, or attacker can create a big file just to stop your infrastructure. Because if one VM will take all disk space on the storage, other VMs can be affected. So be careful with this, be careful with dynamic virtual disks. The same thing as with ILO, separate your management network. There is a lot of data working through this network. As example, Zen server, when it's doing live migration between two hosts, it uses unencrypted channel. So everything there is unencrypted. Be careful with this. Every time when you log on to the server, this can be intercepted. If some of your agents using some APIs to connect to the server, and they use HTTP as example, or your Zen desktop implementation use HTTP to connect to your hypervisor, your password for your hypervisor will be compromised. So be careful with this. You can implement IPsec for, you can do this easily with Windows. You can do this with VMware. There's a knowledge base article how to configure IPsec on VMware. It works with IPv6, but it still works. You can make life of attacker harder by changing MAC addresses. Because if attacker knows what platform you use, it will try to attack using some zero-day vulnerabilities, and it will be much easier if they will see that your VMs are running on Hyper-V or they are running on VMware. Of course, when this attacker will be on your box, he will find what virtualization platform you're using, but by using MAC address, you can find it from any place of your network. So you can change it on VMware and you can change it on VMware and Hyper-V, but you don't need to change it on Zen server. Zen server doesn't use any vendor MAC addresses, so it just generates some random IP address each time. Always try to think about your vCenter or a CVMM as a domain controller. It's more important than your domain controller. You need to secure it properly. You need to be sure that there is no users working on your vCenter server, vSphere server. Because I've seen a lot of guys who, when they want to manage their E6 environment, they connect into vCenter server using RDP and run console there. And every admin that need to manage environment, they do exactly the same thing. They log on to the vCenter server. But every user that have access to vCenter server can get access to the database. Because you can find the password for your SQL database which storing vSphere configuration. and you can elevate your permissions easily. Even someone granted you permissions to manage only one VM. If you have physical access to the center server, that's all. You're king of the world. Configure and enable Active Directory integration. You can do this with every product, and Hyper-V also supported. So you can do this with every product. Use separate user accounts for everything. For your user accounts, for service accounts, create new one for each service. Always monitor your logs, your access logs. It's harder to do with Zen server, harder for Windows administrator. It's easier to do on Hyper-V and SCVMM. Always do this. It's really important. Log default local users. As example, on Zen server there is a root account. And how many of you are using Zen server? How many of you are doing Active Directory integration? How many of you never use a root account for day-to-day management? Nobody. Everybody uses root account. And everybody uses it for everything. How many of you are using Zen desktop with Zen server? What account is configured to connect to the Zen server infrastructure? Root? No? Active Directory account. That's good. That's right. What permissions does this account have? It can be a poor administrator, and it will be the root, actually. So try to disable root accounts. They are dangerous. They can get all information from the server. They can disable your TPM that you configured hardly within a couple of weeks, spend a couple of weeks to configure TPM. Root account can disable this. And that's all. So secure it. Always, if you can't disable root account on Zen server, you can't do this, unfortunately. Set the strong password. Configure password change policy on Zen server. It's possible, and there will be one document that shows how to do this on Zen server. And change this password regularly. Do not use management console as RDP replacement. Again, I've seen it a lot of times. People using Zen Center as their remote access solution to access their servers. That's convenient. You have all servers already in your Zen Center console or vCenter console or SCVMM console. You can see all of them, but at the same time, you're connecting to the console, and someone will see what you're doing on other console, and he will be able to do something when you're taking, trying to find the coffee machine or something like this. Be careful with this. What I can say about Zen server hardening? It's hard to make Zen server secured. But firstly, because Citrix doesn't have any security guide for Zen server. There is one user security guide available, but it's nothing. There is no any useful information, I think. But some Russian guys from Positive Technologies, they made Zen server hardening guide, and it's actually good. There is a lot of information how to make Zen server more secure, and why you need to do this. Because a lot of packages, it's a Linux box, and there is a lot of packages installed, and what they do, nobody knows. Disable things that you're not using. Disable SSH, disable some HTTP protocol, because you don't want to see unencrypted data on the network. Install certificates. All these things are covered in the Zen server hardening guide. So if you're interested, download it and look into it. Configure AD authentication. It's important. Disable SSH if you not use it. Install server certificates. This topic is covered on the support, citrix.com. It's covered in the documentation. It's actually also covered in Zen desktop documentation, how to install certificates on Zen server. So you can find this. Disable access to Zen API. It's also important. And another one thing, disable auto logon to the console on Zen server. Because when you're using Zen Center, you open a Zen Center and you switch into the host and you switch into the console tab, you are root on the system already. So be careful with this and disable this. And avoid using pool admin privilege. Some monitoring agents that are talking with Zen server, they asking you for credentials. And you should always create dedicated user in Active Directory and set this user, set permissions for this user to be read-only. If someone will ask you for pool admin privilege for their monitoring agent, forget about this. These guys, they're correct. They Splunk, they working with read-only privileges. That's a good example. I downloaded 3 or 5 different monitoring solutions to test how they work with Zen server. Most of them require, for most of them, read-only is enough. But for some of them, which are not so popular, and I don't want to mention their name right now, they have this issue. They asking for root permissions. I don't know why they doing this. Always know that every password that you enter in somewhere in Zen server is insecure. Just know about this. When you creating new ISO storage on the CIFS file share, you need to create some dedicated user and set restrictions on this user account where this user can log on. Because any, even read-only user can get a password of this account easily. Connect to Xen API and retrieve PBD list. It will list all PBDs. PBD is pluggable block device, and it's your ISO storage, and you will see all passwords of your users that are connected to the CIFS share unencrypted. Read-only user will see this password, so you can't change it. Only Citrix can change it, unfortunately. But what you can do, you can create user, limit this user permissions to access, to allow logon to only some workstations. Disable interactive logon permission privilege for this user. And be sure that it should act as a service account. There's a guide from Microsoft available on hardening and managing service accounts, so you can read it and implement recommendations. A lot of things that are like role-based authentication, role-based access control in Zen server. A lot of these things is designed and implemented in Zen Center. So if you talk with Zen API using your custom PowerShell scripts, you will get more information than you can get from Zen Center, because Zen Center check your permissions. Are you read-only user? Okay, you're not allowed to do this. But technically, you allow to do this, and you can do this using PowerShell or remote XE command, so you can do this. So be careful with role-based security. As I said about monitoring, be careful with agents that are asking you for pool admin permissions. And even with Zen Center, be careful. Do not store your passwords to your pool. If you're using AD authentication, it's your credentials. If you're using root account to connect to the servers, it's root account. Everybody can read it. What we know about VMware hardening? VMware hardening is simple enough. VMware have a hardening guide for each new version of VMware, and there is a lot of information. And some things are the same with any hypervisor. Always check certificates and always check permissions on vCenter folders, because certificates used by vCenter, by vSphere to connect to the servers, they are stored in the folder, and every user on the vSphere server have access to these certificates. It means that every user can use these certificates to authenticate on the ESXi boxes without password, and that's all. Someone who have access to the backup of your vCenter can get access to all ESXi boxes in your environment. Never use console installed on vCenter itself. And for SQL, change account permissions. You don't need DBO permissions on the SQL database. It works for vCenter, it works for the XenApp, for almost every product. You need DB owner permissions on the beginning when you make your installation. But in most of the cases, you don't need these permissions after installation. And the same, disable SSH on ESXi servers if nobody uses it. Same with agents, be careful. You can check your vCenter compliance. As I said, vSphere is much easier to make more secure because there are some partner solutions available that can work like best practice analyzer. They can check what topics from hardening guide was implemented or not, and it's easy to use tools, so try them. With System Center Virtual Machine Manager, it's also easy to make it secure. First of all, do not use this server as your workstation. So never run the console from the VMM server itself. For Hyper-V boxes, use server core installation. Less components on the server, less problems you will have. Change permissions on the VHD store and always use NTFS to store your VHD files. And check permissions on these folders. You can find the Hyper-V security guide, and you can download Microsoft Security Compliance Manager and use it. There's a lot of policies describe it, and you can enforce them in your environment. So, second part of my presentation, I have only 15 minutes, I think, and I will try to be fast. So, we talked about Xen server, Hyper-V, about your hypervisors, but your users accessing your desktops, and there is a lot of best practices recommendations available, because VDI is almost the same like terminal servers, and it have the same recommendations that you can find for MetaFrame XP. You can implement most of them you can implement these recommendations with VMware View and desktop vWorkspace with any product, not only with terminal servers. So it's basic. Use group policy management console to manage GPOs and manage your infrastructure. Create separator U for each new desktop group and create different policies, different set of policies, and control them. Do not disable Windows Firewall. most of the customers that I've seen, they are disabling Windows Firewall. And some of them installing some other solutions, but not all of them. Most customers just disable firewall on the domain network. You can manage firewall with group policy and do this. It's much better to enable only some applications that you trust. You can enable access from these applications. Monitor your logs on your DDC, on your vCenter. Monitor access logs, who do some changes, configurations. If your product that you use have configuration logging, you can find configuration logging in Zen Desktop, in provisioning server, in Zen app. Always enable configuration logging and monitor these logs. And do not use default groups for everything, for every product. And it also applies to Zen app, Zen Desktop view implementation. Do not use default groups. Create new groups for remote access, configure them via group policy, and it will make your environment a little bit more secure. Because if you will have everything by default and you will see domain users as users on the box, almost every user can do something there. You don't need this in most cases. Use app locker, software restriction policies, or other application control to monitor application use. Why I'm not saying that you need to use app locker to force that some applications will be disabled. Just because you cannot secure your infrastructure with any tool. Even AppSense, RES, AppLocker, with all these tools, any user can run any application if this user is smart enough. Of course, I'm not talking about just basic user whose work is open Excel and work with Excel. But the same Excel can be used to bypass application security on AppSense, RES, AppLocker, on any product. Because if you have some process running, you can, and you have some scripting environment in this process, and you have scripting environment in Office applications, you have a scripting environment in Internet Explorer or Chrome or Mozilla Firefox on any browser, you have scripting environment. You have PowerShell installed, you have a lot of tools, and you cannot remove them all from the server. If you will prevent users to run macros in Excel, some users will be not able to do their job. So be careful with this. And first of all, you need to secure, when you want to secure your data, you need to categorize data. If you will just enable AppLocker or AppSense for application control, or REST application control, it will just make life of your users harder, but it will be nothing for attacker. Windows installer. It's powerful tool, and it should be secured. Why it should be secured? First of all, if you have Windows installer enabled, and you should have it enabled, because a lot of applications are not working when you disable Windows installer. So if your Windows installer is enabled, any user can restart your terminal server easily. There is small, short demonstration on this. So as you see on the screen, I'm just a user on some XenApp server. I logged into the server, so I have only user permissions. And of course, if I will go to start power off, there is no power off option. I cannot power off server or restart server. But I can restart server using MSI. What I'm doing, I'm trying to install MSI package. No, it's not possible. It's locked by administrator. Only administrator can do installation. But can I do repair? Yes, I can. I'm a user. I can repair a product that was installed by the administrator. And it's a default setting. If you not configured Microsoft installer behavior in group policies, it's a default setting on your server. So I tried to repair Microsoft Word MUI something, so it was repaired okay. I started Microsoft Word, so files are in use. Okay, I don't want to close applications, I want to restart server, okay? And that's it. I'm repairing application, and then I press button to restart server. And if you have 100 users on this server, I'm a user, I can restart it. You need to be careful with Windows installer. And there is a lot of different ways to use Windows installer in your environment to elevate your permissions. Next step, so as I said, be careful. Configure MSI logging. You can configure MSI logging. In most of the cases, you cannot disable Microsoft installer on the Windows box. Configure MSI logging to see who did some changes with using MSI. Collect these logs and analyze them. There is one group policy settings, always install elevated. It is misunderstood by some of the customers, some of the people. It doesn't mean that it will require elevation to install application. So it will not say that only administrators can install application. This group policy setting means that every user can install any application using administrative permissions, using system account permissions. And if you will enable this group policy, it will be easier for everyone to install any software. So enforce MSI sign-in using AppLocker or your favorite tool. And always check permissions on the folders where your MSI files are stored during the installation. Let me show you another one demo. On the same environment with default configuration, I'm just a user, and yes, it's right. I'm just a user, and of course I can browse the registry. You can block it with absence or whatever. You can block regedit, but believe me, attacker will find a way to read the registry. And even in this case, registry access is not important. I'm just showing where I found some information in the registry. So I can read registry. And what I'm trying to find, I'm trying to find some non-existent install source parameter or existing install source parameter. It's a folder where your MSI files was stored when you did installation. So, as example, Microsoft Office use MSO cache folder in the root of the drive to store cache of MSI files that can be used to repair. It's secured, I cannot access. But there is a couple of components installed on every XenApp server, like Visual C redistributable or .NET or Microsoft Primary something components. And they use this folder, temporary folder. Microsoft SVX, self-extracting archive, use these strange names, generate temporary names and create a folder in the root of the biggest drive. And this folder is not existing. But I'm a user, and I can create this folder easily. I can create this folder, and what I can do, I can modify MSI file, because it's not a rocket science. You can open Orca tool to modify MSI file and change actions that are made during the repair or during the installation. So I modified MSI file to open the command prompt. And I use Microsoft installer with some keys that enforce that your installation will be repaired using the source and will be recached from the source. And I put my modified MSI file to the folder. So I'm running repair, and what I see, wow, it's command line. Who am I? I'm a system. That's all. I'm administrator on this box. I can do anything that I want. And if you have terminal servers in your environment, you can do this. There's different options how to configure REST workspace. You can use SQL authentication, and you can use Windows authentication. So they use it SQL authentication, and password was stored for this product. Password is stored in HKL local machine software REST something. I'm a user, and I was able to read this password. Of course, it was encrypted. It was encrypted, and I will show you later how it was, how I did the change. But you can decrypt any password that are stored on the computer. So every time when you entering the password during some software installation, check where this password is stored, find where this password is stored, and check permissions on this folder or on this registry key. Absence, save it in XML file. It's accessible by user, but Absence doesn't have this configuration file on ZenApp servers or Zen desktop servers. So it's available only for administrators of ZenApp or of Absence. Res can use Windows accounts, and this data can be stored in more secure way. But anyway, always check permissions and set ACLs. I don't have a time, but I will. Can I have 5 minutes more? So for encryption of almost every password in almost every product that you can find, there is a good tool available, Data Protection API from Microsoft. It's embedded in every version of Windows starting Windows 2000, and a lot of software use it to encrypt passwords. You can find that Chrome, ZenApp use it, and passwords can be sorted, but it's easy to use API. There is only two functions, two popular functions, data encryption and decryption. And there is only a few parameters to these functions. And if we're talking about ZenApp as example, ZenApp is storing password for SQL connection in the registry. But Citrix did proper thing with this. They secured this registry key by ACL, and user is not able to read this key and decrypt data. With other tools, you can find that password is encrypted, but it's accessible, and every user can decrypt it on the server. There is a couple of tools available that using data protection API to decrypt the passwords. This first tool from Remco, IMA password decoder, he wrote it in a couple of hours after my BriForum presentation. Because on my BriForum presentation in London, I did IMA encryption using Windows Debugger. He just seen that, oh, it's crypt and protect data function. Okay, we can use it easily. And you can use my universal password decoder tool. It's easy. It's two PowerShell commands. First, I want to add system security assembly, and then I use crypt and protect data, and I tested with Absence, with ZenServer, with ZenApp. It works. If I can run PowerShell on the box where password is stored, I have the keys if it was encrypted using the local system, and I can decrypt it easily. And you can find a lot of encrypted data in the registry if you will try to search for this signature. All encrypted by data protection API strings. They are stored with this signature, and you can find it easily in the registry. And there is also other ways to decrypt the password. It's called Task Manager. So I can open the process. I can open Task Manager, right-click, create dump file, and check what's inside. Wow, it's a REST workspace configuration. I had the password, but it was from real customer. So it was funny, and that's a SQL access to the REST workspace database. What I can do with this, first of all, I can change my permissions in REST workspace, and if some application restriction policies was enforced, I can change it. I can become a REST workspace administrator and set some logon script, some funny logon script with funny comments for the main admin or for someone. And I can do anything, and I can get elevated using REST workspace. But in that case, it was funny. This user was a SQL user, and it had access to other databases on the server. And I found a lot of things, like Vision App Remote Desktop Manager, which stored a lot of passwords. Wow, I can do anything with this. So, okay, always secure your database and always secure passwords that use it to access database. Check permissions on ACL. Always create different users for different roles on SQL Server. Limit their permissions, because in most software, user permissions are checked on the software level. If we're talking about XenApp, when you're trying to add new XenApp administrator, XenApp is checking, are you able to do this? Are you have permissions to do this? But if you have access to database, there is no checks, and you can easily create this short SQL script and remove all administrators from the SQL database. Or you can add new users to the SQL database. You can do the same with provisioning services. You can do this with any product, and you can, if you have access to System Center Virtual Machine Manager database or vCenter database, it's a problem. It's a problem. So that's all. Unfortunately, we don't have a time for questions. But if you will have questions, you can easily email me. You can scan this QR code. It's my virtual card. It have all my contact details. So you can email you. You can follow me on Twitter and send messages to me easily. So, and you can find all links that was mentioned in this presentation on this URL. And this presentation will be published today or maybe tomorrow, and will be available on the same link. So thank you for coming. I hope it was good. Thank you.